everybody. We're actually going to get started. We expect people to kind of be straggling in, but we also want to respect everybody's time. And it is 6:30. I mean, with the new location, I know we're going to get a little bit more kind of people coming in later. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Of course, this is our new space. First of all, I just want to give a special thank you to all of the candidates for the upcoming election who have come in today. That's obviously a lot of the reason why, that's going to be the main focus of the meeting today. And we're going to give them all an opportunity to speak, introduce themselves to us, and also to answer just a few questions. But we want to, because we have our normal guests that come in and kind of give us some basic reports, we're going to get through those first, so that we can devote the rest of the meeting to the elected officials, the prospective elected officials that are here tonight. So before we get to that, Alan, why don't you do your treasurer announcement here for us?
Okay. We currently have just over $2,400 in the bank, which is nice. And I have a current membership roster. So at the end of the meeting, if you're not sure if you've paid dues recently, or if you would like to pay dues, I'll wait for a few minutes and come see me. And that's really all I got.
All right, thank you, Alan. Does anybody have any questions for Alan, treasury-related questions? Okay, so you can see him after the meeting. Do we have any announcements that were related to neighborhood stuff?
We could talk about the fall festival and Adam wanted to mention the holiday tour of hope.
Oh yeah, Adam, why don't you talk about that then?
Okay, we're thinking about doing a holiday walk this year. When we were in Orlando, our subdivision used to do it every year for the holidays. So either you would decorate your house inside or out, and invite people if you're comfortable with going into your house, or just showing off the lights. If you want to participate and you're not comfortable with people going in your house, maybe decorate the outside of your house, maybe get a table with like cookies or something. So sometime as we get closer to Thanksgiving, I'll put something out on the Facebook page to see who wants to participate, and we'll get a time, a date, and we'll get a map together. It's going to be kind of fun to bring everybody together.
Is this kind of like an adult trick-or-treating?
Yeah.
I like it.
And there was some
You
talk
got the
about
message.
and there was some talk about possibly doing a cookie swap, which we can incorporate that in there. So for example, if we do the house tour for maybe an hour and a half, let's say from 6:30 to 8, so at 8 o'clock we can maybe meet in the park up here, and we can set up a couple tables if people want to do a cookie swap. So as we get closer, we'll kind of get some times and dates that's going to be the most amenable to everybody.
And our subdivision in Orlando was a little bit smaller than this one. Obviously, it wasn't quite as many streets. It was a little bit easier to control. But we just thought, we like driving around. We like driving around and seeing the neighbors' houses, and we love Gretchen's posts about the lights and things like that. So to take advantage of perhaps the cooler weather, maybe.
And if those people like us who go crazy decorating the inside of the house, if you want to show it off, that's kind of one of the advantages of it. So just a thought that we'll throw out there probably as we get closer to Thanksgiving, just to get some times and dates.
You guys are interested.
Yep.
Thank you, Adam. Really appreciate that. And Tina?
So going backwards to our usual Halloween/fall festival, we spoke with Billy Gartside, and he is taking this year off. So we will not be having the haunted house in Parkside this year. I guess it would be the 10-year anniversary, but hey, he wants to take his kid trick-or-treating. Who can argue with that? So we're gonna need to come up with some ideas for how we wanna do a fall fest. If anyone's interested in helping us plan, I'm very happy to take you up on that. Anybody? So we'll post about that in Parkside Open Chat and see if we can get some other people to, help out.
Can I just say that I just talked to one of his friends who said he needed a break. It's expensive. He needed the year off, but he plans an extravaganza for next year.
Yes, extravaganza. So that's high hopes right there. Big shoes to fill, extravaganza. So but we'll figure out something, because that's one of our, I think that's one of our funnest things we do every year. So.
And then one other thing here is that the fire department did stop by earlier, and they're asking us to, as a neighborhood, to complete a survey. There are, yes, as Khalif has here, the community survey by the local fire department with a QR code on the back to be able to do this survey. We'd ask anybody who'd be willing to participate, who's a member of the neighborhood, to please just come and grab a card after the meeting, so that you can do that survey and we can help the fire department out with their information gathering there. All right, so let's get to our, let's get to our committee, or our reports here. And I see that we've got Sharif has come in the door here, so we'll start with our police report for the month.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't get the desired effect that I wanted to do. I was trying to scare you all, but apparently. Yeah, so I was trying to scare everybody, but it didn't work out. I'll think of something next time to really scare everyone. Bring a bullhorn in here.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just wait a second so everyone can get a paper, and then we'll chat about what's all the ruckus been. Alright, so anywho, I'm Corporal Lockett. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know if I like this setup better or if I like the circle setup better. But I can get used to this, it's fine. Alright, so as you all see from the crime list here, you all are actually down from this time last year, which is positive. Last year, there were 30 incidents that were Part 1 offenses, which are the aggravated assaults, raised robberies, and then the property crime, which are burglaries, larcenies, entering autos, and auto thefts. So last year there were 9 that occurred in Daffin Park. This year there are 3 that occurred in Daffin Park. And if y'all flip over, we'll talk about some of the fun stuff that the neighborhood has had lately. All right, so let's start off with some violent stuff. So on June 27th, at Live Oak and 51st, there was an armed robbery. So the officers were dispatched to that intersection. There was a guy that was walking home. This was almost 11 o'clock at night. He wasn't paying attention. Unfortunately, he was in his phone, which, I mean, I would do the same thing, honestly, if I'm walking home from work. And these individuals in a black-colored sedan snuck up on him. One of the guys jumped out with a rifle, headbutted him with the rifle, caused a huge gash in his head. Then when he was on the ground, they headbutted him again with the rifle. And then they stole some of the things that he had. I think he had a wallet, identifying cars and things like that. So that incident is still under investigation. However, there is some good news. The first thing is this same crew committed 3 armed robberies within our precinct alone. And the very next day, when they committed one by Savannah High, they stole a cell phone from the victim. So he started tracking the cell phone, and it tracked to the Shell at Waters and Eisenhower. So officers started converging in on the area, and then when they turned into the Shell gas station, they saw a black-colored sedan which took off out of the gas station. So they initiated a pursuit with it. I think they hit a fire truck during the pursuit too. But the guys got away at that time, and then an hour later, the owner of the car, who was like 19 or 20, he called, and guess what he said? My vehicle was stolen. So they took the report, and then they couldn't reach him to talk about his stolen vehicle, which crashed in Fred Wessel's like 3 days later. So then a week later, I was driving around by McDonald's on Skidaway, and I see these guys like staring at me. So I ran the tag, and it came back to that guy. So I turned around, I lost the car, and I was like, well, when the vehicle was recovered, it crashed in Fred Wessel's, so let me go to Fred Wessel's. So sure enough, I found the car in Fred Wessel's, and I pulled it over, and actually they pulled over, which I couldn't believe it. So the guy had a gun on him. He had a stolen gun in the car. He had like 58 pills of ecstasy. He had a whole bunch of marijuana. He had scales. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on with it. So they ended up charging him with armed robbery. So he got out, and then there was another guy that they had arrested that was from Florida. I think it was from like Miami that was involved in this incident, that he was arrested as well. I think there's still one guy that's still outstanding though, if I'm not mistaken, but they know who it is. So that's the good thing for that. July 22nd, there was another robbery on the 1200 block of East 48th Street. So there was a guy walking around, this is at 5:55 in the evening. This guy came up to these two individuals walking a dog, and he just started talking to them. Then he pulled out a firearm and demanded their property, which they didn't have any to give him. So then he took off away, and then was last seen running on Cedar Street. And that one was already placed in abeyance, which means that if anything else further comes to find out who the suspect is, they'll reopen it, but they exhausted all their leads on that. I know they looked at a whole bunch of video footage within the area, and they couldn't find anything that would help them. On August 29th, there was a burglary attempt in the 1100 block of East 48th Street. The lady that called said that she heard something outside her window around 9 o'clock in the morning. And there was a guy in her yard saying that he was looking for his dog, and then he fled the area. Well, then literally just within a few minutes, in the 700 block of East 48th Street, the guy actually went into somebody's house and was stealing things. So he got stopped, he had the items from the house that he was inside, and then they arrested him. And as you see that I wrote here, he's been arrested before for robbery, armed robbery, burglary, and aggravated battery, so hopefully he won't be getting out anytime soon. On September 4th at B Road and 50th Street, during all the Hurricane Dorian fun, there was an officer that tried to pull over a car that was prowling in y'all's neighborhood. Well, the car took off and then crashed, but then we got the guy. The vehicle was uninsured, and the guy was out past curfew. And then I didn't put it on here because I actually made this last week, but unfortunately I got the wrong date. But there was some fun last week in the neighborhood. Don't know who saw it and who didn't, but there were these 4 individuals that were involved in a shooting earlier in the day, and then they were driving around a stolen vehicle. So we tried to pull the vehicle over. Of course, didn't pull over. So literally chasing them all over the area, chasing them down Victory Drive, down B Road in Grenoble area, in Edgemere, and then they crashed at 11 and 50th. So we got all 4 of them though. They got a couple of guns out of the guys. The oldest guy was like 19, I think, so they were all pretty young. And you know, just a bunch of craziness lately, I tell you. But does anyone have any questions? I know I spoke a lot, but I wanted to make sure I covered everything. And then I'm gonna hang out for a little while as well. Go ahead.
Just clarification on the second one, mismanaged teeth.
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out a way to like word it. They said the teeth were jacked up. I don't know if he was like bucktooth or what. So. Captain Gunnich is on his way also. He was at another meeting. So. Go ahead.
Is there a way to look at the stats for the surrounding areas, just like you did, so you can see ours like Edgemere?
Yeah, so
year over year, as opposed to just part-time.
So if you go to SavannahPD.org, there's like a tab somewhere near the top where you can click like crime stats, and I believe you can put the dates in. I've only done it one time, and it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure if you go to SavannahPD.org, there's a way on there that you can do it. So I'm like look at. It's not as like clean as this because I do this myself, and I have to read every single report, but it's something similar that you can do that. Well, like I said, I'll stand by for if anyone has anything afterwards. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. I also see that we have code compliance here today, but it's not, you're not Bob.
Gary.
Gary, you're not Gary.
I'm not gonna run either.
I'm Officer Womack, and I'm taking over for Gary. We had 2 people leave our section, so now Officer Bronson and I are covering the whole entire east side by ourselves. So he's got half the neighborhoods and I got the other half. So I've only been riding around in Parkside for maybe a month, and I haven't really had a lot of cases, so I guess that's good. Currently, we're only showing 3 initiated cases, and they just came in this week, so I haven't had a chance yet to review those. Well, within. So I I'll just, if anybody has any concerns or questions or anything, you can write it down.
Yes, which precinct do you work out of?
I believe it's the same one, just Eastwood.
East side?
Yes.
Okay.
Where is that?
I'm not in a precinct, I'm code compliance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we have the whole entire east side area, that's anything from Bull Street to the Truman, and, I don't know how far down it goes, but it doesn't go, it stops at the Victoria district, I think, and then goes all the way back, so.
What I was interested in knowing was, officer, is he still there?
Sharif,
Right
yeah,
now?
fine.
What precinct do you out of?
The east side precinct, which is on Victory next to Coach's Corner, sorry.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that there was one there.
Yeah, they just, opened it last week. It used to be JT Turner. But when we demerged from Metro, that's when they had, got that.
Come over here and take a look at that.
All right, any other questions for Officer Womack?
Do you have a card on you? So I can
No, I'm too new.
Would
They're
you
not,
like
they're
to
not investing in
write
me
down
yet,
your
so.
email for me so I can reach out to you?
Great, and we can make this email, of course, available to everybody in the neighborhood if you have an issue. But generally speaking, for code compliance, people should call, is it 311?
311's
Yeah.
the best way, because that starts a record of the complaint. So if you're telling somebody when we're driving around and we're looking at 3 or 4 different things, we sometimes can forget. Same with the email. Go out email every day. It might get missed, but if you put it in 311, it won't get missed.
That's L Womack? Great.
Can I put my number on there? Put my number on there too.
Oh, sure.
And, this is a mobile number, so people can text also.
Oh, that's my number.
I think it is for a lot of people now.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you, Officer Womack, we appreciate it. We've got one more presentation before we get to the candidates that we have in-house today, and that's from Lisa Rundstrom. She is, well, why don't I just let you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Lisa Brunstrom and I just moved to Savannah 2 years ago. I've been teaching, I teach at SCAD. I taught at Wichita State University for 13 years prior to that, and I am really big into community and community outreach, and my work, I'm a practicing artist and I teach interactive media at SCAD, and one of the things that has been missing from my life, I was working on a commission and I have not been able to outreach and do things with the community, and so I wanted to do a project that involved the community, and so I kind of look at what's going on with my own research and my interest, and some of the things that have come up were immigration, and I was involved with some refugee relief a couple years ago, and those things politically are on my mind a lot, and then my own relationship with SCAD and feeling a little disconnected from the community, not by anyone's fault, but my own, and wanting to connect and to meet my neighbors. And I know my neighbors on both sides of me, and I don't have anyone across the street from me, and so from that I started developing a project, and it will involve some of my students, but hopefully involve the community as well. And so I've been kind of outreaching with groups in the community. The Urban Mentoring Academy Boom Band is going to be playing at it. There are a few different performers that are local, like kind of bizarre carnival things, but then also musicians from different types of music, trying to really find groups that normally maybe run in different circles and give them a chance to meet. Because I think a big part of it for many people is that, yes, we kind of have a dog in the race or a cause that we're supporting, but we need to be more supportive of each other and each other's causes, and to have a way in, because we just don't cross paths naturally in a lot of ways. I go to work, I come home, I go to my grocery store, I come home, and that's kind of how it works. And to give us an opportunity to do that. So I've invited all of the LGBTQ community, all of the Latino community through different social outlets, the Black Lives Matter community, many members of the community to try to encourage unity and togetherness and connectedness. And it is difficult, because we're in a really polarized time. So anyway, that's what this parade is all about. It's a multicultural parade. Everyone's welcome as long as they're nice. And basically there's going to be free yoga from 5 to 6, and Kelly Boyd that owns the Savannah Yoga Center downtown on Bull Street in Ordinary Magic is going to be teaching some free yoga for us. And then after that we have the boom band and another girls band that's going to play, and then we're going to do the parade from 7 to 7:30, 7:45. It's just going to be one march around Forsyth Park, and then we'll end with some more bands. There's also going to be t-shirts that say, "Hello neighbor, my name is," and then we paint them with our names and customize them, and activities where we can meet each other. There's a community tree and just social setting. So anyways, that's what this is all about. It's on social media, it's on Facebook, it's on Instagram. We have some great community speakers, one of which is sitting in this room right now, going to be there, and I hope to see everybody there. I have some cards and other stuff here.
What's the date?
It is the 12th. It's not this Saturday, but the Saturday after that.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Any questions?
Sounds like it's gonna be awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa, for coming out today. Although this is not a Parkside specific event, it seemed to be in line with our values, and so I wanted to make sure we got that. And as Lisa said, there are a number of flyers here. She did pass out some cards, but if you would like to take a flyer, there's plenty here for everybody. In fact, if you want to pass
Sure,
them around
I'll pass
too.
them around, and if anyone wants one.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Now, really quick though, before we get to the candidates, I did notice that Chief Minter has stepped into the door, so I just wanted, before we got to all of the political, well, the speeches, I'd ask if Chief Minter had anything that he'd like to say, or anything that you have for us for today.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm just here to support the East Side Precinct officers. The captain will be here soon, and we got Sharif here already, so I'm not going to stand in their way. But thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Chief, for coming out tonight. We appreciate that. All right, well, let's get to the candidates. And so the way we decided that we're going to kind of do this, because there's a lot of people here, we're going to, usually we have a very strict 1 hour long meeting schedule, but we've extended that to be an hour for the candidates, so then we are willing to extend the meeting up until 8 o'clock tonight, and we've spoken to the church here, and they've given us permission to extend our meeting beyond if need be. So we're going to give each of the candidates a couple of minutes, maybe as much as 5 minutes, to sort of talk about who they introduce themselves, talk a little bit about who they are, and we'll go through all the candidates, and then we'll open it up for questions from the floor. We do have a couple of questions we're going to start with before we get to the to questions from all of y'all. But without further ado, let's get into doing the candidate introductions, and I'm going to allow Miss Alicia Blakely here to speak first, because she was the first person here, so she deserves to be the first person to speak.
That is so nice. Oh my gosh, thank y'all so much for the opportunity to come and speak before you all. And please forgive my appearance. I was out actually canvassing and campaigning and all that good stuff. But I am what you call, I'll give you one. Tony, how you doing tonight? I am what you call a boots on the ground candidate, okay? I've done a lot in my 59 years of living, and I promise y'all I won't take all night talking about myself. But when folk ask me, what am I gonna do once I get at City Hall? Oh, you got me. Okay. Once I get at City Hall, I tell them I'm going to be a freshman there. So, take some and pass them around. I'm going to be a freshman there. But what I can promise you about me is I'm not gonna be afraid to ask questions. I'm not gonna be afraid to speak up and speak out as far as issues are concerned within the whole community. I always say I want to see everybody on a level playing field. But I spoke to someone tonight and she said, you know, let's talk about equity. So we're going to talk about equity across the board for everybody, because you have some folk that have a whole lot that don't know that they need to help the ones that don't have. I'm going to be that candidate that says, come on now, if you got it, come on and share it. Give a little bit. Look at my background. I'm on Facebook. I'm a veteran. I'm a Monuments and Markers Commissioner. I do a whole lot. I'm the originator of the Bullhorn Crew. We were the organization that stood on the street corners and said, enough is enough. Stop the violence, stop the crime. I realized that after being on the corner with the bullhorn, that wasn't enough. In order to effectuate real change, we have to sit at the table where the changes can and will be made. And that's why I'm running for office, because I want to be that candidate that speaks up, speak out, not just for a select group of people, but for everybody. With that being said, I'm Alicia Blakely, and I would appreciate if you give this grassroots, knocking on the door candidate your support and your vote. Thank you.
And I think it makes a lot of sense to ask if maybe Mr. Tony Center would like to introduce himself now, since you two are friends.
We're friends because we know each other by campaigning. I don't think you do campaign, but we know each other through campaigning. I'm Tony Center. I also am running for Alderman at Large, Post 2. You know, you've got 4 voices, you get 4 votes in city council. Mayor, 2 at large, a citywide. I don't know why I named at large. I think it just make it more confusing. And the arbitrarily numbered Post 1 and Post 2, and you select one to run for, and then your district, and all yours are competitive. Parkside's over there, right? So it's just a competitive district. So you can vote for 4, and I'm asking for 1 of your 4 votes at large, Post 2. I'm a native Savannah. I was born here. I grew up here. I grew up in the Ferry Oaks, Forest, and Durin area. I played Little League ball at Hull Park. I was an all-star. 20 league ball over at Western Park. I went to school at the real Savannah High right down the street.
Yeah.
And you know, I've lived away and I moved home. And what I bring to you is someone who's got experience in government. I served 4 years on the county commission. Let me tell you, in my career as a trial lawyer, I represented the less powerful bringing justice to the less powerful against people who are more powerful. I served on the City Cultural Affairs Commission. If education is important to you, during my 6 years here, we voted for it and we funded Step Up Savannah, DEEP, and Parents University. As a matter of fact, my last year in the county commission, we were funding Parents University also. In the last budget, they wanted to take money away from Parents University. I single-handedly fought to put that money back in. Actually, it was a swap out. They would give it to CETA. Somehow they came up with more money to keep CETA in there, but we gave money back to Parents University. Trying to think what's important to you. If higher wages are important to you for our government employees, when I was in county commission, for the first time in years, we voted a pay raise for our government employees. We implemented a health care plan, innovative, that gave more accessible and cheaper health care to our employees. With MWBE participation, we talked about equity and sharing. It's important. In the county commission, we voted for such a program. We made contractors come to us once a month to prove to us they were complying with that program. I know law enforcement and your safety and your protection is important. When it seemed like every week on the county commission, the police merger demerger was an issue. The newspaper even said, "Well, y'all decided something already. We're tired of writing about it." But when the negotiations broke down, I used my legal experience. I sat down in my dining room on a weekend, spread papers all across the table and on the floor, and I personally wrote the last merger agreement between the city and the county. The city passed it unanimously. The county, 1 dissenting vote, D. Hickletter, passed it 8-1, and that's the last agreement. What I bring to you is hands-on experience. Clear eye, level head experience, and when things don't get done, I get in there and reach a result. I don't fight and argue. The idea is to reach, on the commission, we have Republicans and Democrats that reach across the party line. They don't have party line in the city council, but they seem a little more fractured, even in the commission. And what I do is look for a way to get a result. I'll give you another incident. national cell tower companies wanted to have the state of Georgia override city planning so that they could build cell towers at any height, any width, wherever they wanted, without local regulation. That really affected Savannah. One, we have world-class mosquito control. And I got to fly in a helicopter. Our pilots fly at dusk and dawn at very low levels. And they have to be able to eyeball these towers so they can put a reflective tape on it, like on a stop sign, so they can shine a light and see it. Well, that's $20 a tower. They didn't want to pay that for those towers. Downtown Historic District watches every nail and screw that goes in a building, so they didn't want to be overridden with it. The state wanted to pass it. I happen to have a personal relationship with the Speaker of the House because he was a trial lawyer. I've known him for so many years, and I went on Savannah Chatham Day and brought it to his attention, and we stopped it on the state level. Wasn't good enough. They went to the national level and did the national people bill. Well, I happened to spend 2 years of my long career as a telecom attorney for a company out of Atlanta, offices in Birmingham, and most of my job was going to different states, learning state regulations so we could comply, and going once a month to Washington, D.C. to deal with the Federal Trade Commission, Federal Communication Commission, and members of Congress. Well, I happen to know that we got 5 Federal Communication Commission commissioners, so at a national county commissioners conference in Washington, I persuaded the county to let me take a mosquito control head, a zoning person, and one of their helicopter pilots. I personally arranged a meeting with 4 of the 5 Federal Communication Commissioners. And they said, God, you guys, you're the only boots on the ground of the company. I said, what's boots on the ground? Everybody else was a paid suit. You guys from community, y'all have more effect than us. And they brought the head person with the right regulations, and we prevented the cell towers on a national level from overriding local zoning. I protect neighborhoods. I don't scream and pump my fist, but my thing is to find a solution. Look outside the box if necessary, and that's what I bring to you, to the council. You have, everybody's got great attributes. We're not the same people, and you're going to have to balance between us. It's a shame you can't share it, but I'm asking you to cast your vote for Tony Center. I bring you a background, an education, effort, and energy, and a way to try to solve problems. And I'm asking to let me serve you. It's my father did it years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. He happened to sit in the same seat, why I picked post 2 with the Rusaka team. I'm asking to let me serve you, let me serve in the county commission, asking for 4 more years in city council. I'll give you the best I got to help make your community safe, healthy, and beautiful. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Senator. So why don't we move over to the 3rd district here? We'll get to our at-large post 1 in a minute, but Ms. Bell just came in here recently, so I want to let you settle in for a second here before we get to that. So I don't know what we'll say, ladies first. Ms. Linda Wilder Bryan, you want to speak for a minute?
Yes, I will. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited, and you need to be excited too. I have 17 years of law enforcement, pre-trial, post-trial transition. I've worked as a manager for a home health agency where I specialize in geriatrics. I've taught in private and public schools. I retired from which was formerly known as paper. So I've been busy. And I want people to know that change is not coming, change is here. There are a lot of things going on in this city that the 3rd has not been included to. I didn't come to bash anybody. I just know that we've been quiet for too long. People say that great things are happening in this city, and great things are happening, just not for everybody. We need to do something about that. Y'all know that's our money, right? Let me hear you say that's our money. I can't hear you. So if that's our money, it should not just be spent in the 1st and the 2nd district. It should filter down to the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th, and the 6th district. So I don't want people just to vote for me. I want people, because I want to make this job easy. I want to have some fun. I am a public servant, but people say they don't want to be a politician. Well, politics got us to where we are. So it's okay if you're a politician. It's just we need good politicians. When you elect good people, you get good results. So we need 4 other people, including Linda, to make decisions for the people. We need to give government back to the people. A lot of things are going on in this city that the 3rd has not been included in. And so we have people sitting in big chairs, making them lawn chairs, reclining chairs. And I mean that because it's serious. People have not been, well, people have been quiet. And it's time out for us to be quiet. We have to put people in positions who are not afraid to say, what about us? What about me? There's so many things going on in the city. I am on the Arts Commission because I know art works. We have children who are hungry. As a matter of fact, the last time that I was in this building, we fed kids for 2 weeks that we partnered with Mr. Jones from Red and White. So we're doing amazing things. We really are. We know that people are hungry. And so we just don't feed people's stomachs. We feed their heads. We want to make sure that this city, and we don't even want to talk about affordable housing. We want to talk about housing that's affordable for young people who come into this community first time out, for the elderly. There are a lot of things going in, and we're excluded. So all I can tell you is, and people have said that I've been making promises. I have. I've promised to be Linda 24/7 for everybody. That's my promise. I promise when there is a vote that has to do with the people, we're going to put the citizens first. I promise that everything that I do, everything that I say, you can give it back to me. And I also promise, because we're living in silos here, even with the neighborhood association. I don't see how people do it. But the first thing I do when I'm elected, I'm going to get all the neighborhood associations together, because I'm tired of running for 10 minutes. How do you effectively be a voice if you can only be there for 10 minutes? There are 30 days in a month. Surely we should be able, with the 13 or 14 associations here, for each one you have a day, so that we can hear all of your concerns. So if Parkside has a problem, or Twickenham or East Savannah, everybody from the 3rd District should be there and say, we're behind Parkside, we're behind Twickenham, because there is power in people. I don't have a magic wand, but I know that there is magic in people. And if you give Linda Wilder Bryan, and I know y'all seen those big beautiful signs that say a pit bull, I will be a pit bull for each and every one of you, because diversity rocks. And I have been working for the people and with the people as an Eastern Star, as a Shriner. You know what a Shriner is. And people say boots on. I have a partnership with the Board of Education where L Before and After has given out over 600 bicycles. We give a bicycle, a brand new bicycle, to each person that the Board of Education nominates as a student of the month. And so all I can tell you is, if you want change, if you want diversity, if you want people to be your voice, I will do as much as I can, as often as I can, for all the people. Let me say all the people.
All the people. All
the people. I can't hear you.
All the people.
That's it. So, if you want somebody who's going to work for all the people all the time, looking at all your eyes, because you need somebody who's going to follow through and not drop the bomb. And oh yeah, y'all remember that fire team? Remember the fire team? Remember in November. So all those people who said they were servants, they haven't really served you. They have been self-serving, and y'all know it. So you're on the fence. And I know you already decided who you're going to vote for. And that's good. But if you want real change, and you want to do something about this dark, dirty city, especially in the 3rd, where people are complaining about sidewalks and regular scheduled trash pickups, sidewalks. And I tell people this, and don't be offended. People don't want 30 acres, or 40 acres and a mule. They want sidewalks. They want lights. They want street calming. And we should have already had that. So you're going to see people cutting ribbons, and you're going to see people turning soil, and we always see that when it's election time. But you need to know what happened when they first got elected, in the middle, and don't worry about the end, because the end is near. So look to your left and look to your right. Everybody that you see is not going to be sitting on Faith Street, and we know it. So it's up to you, the magic of the people. I am Linda Wilder Bryan. I am the people's candidate, and I'm going to keep on being the pit bull that you need downtown. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Alderman Hall, would you like to give us a few minutes?
Good afternoon. I promise you I wouldn't be that long. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I am John Hall. I am the incumbent. I am running for re-election. I am a native of Thunderbolt. I got my start in that small community as a councilman. I served 2 terms out there for a total of 8 years. Enjoyed every minute of it. My wife and I, we moved into the city limits of Savannah, and we ran and one time we were not successful, we ran again and we were successful. We ran again and we were successful again. I have enjoyed my time on the council working with people who understand how to get things done, working together, because that does work when you work together.
Yeah.
We have had issues on our city council, and my opponent mentioned the fire fee. We heard the people loud and clear, and it was repealed. Never cost anybody a nickel.
Right.
Never cost anybody a nickel. So that's not gonna be anybody's Achilles heel. The fire fee, that was nothing. We did not charge anybody one penny. So remember that, remember that, remember that. And I don't come here making promises. I have a record to run on.
That's right.
I have a record to run on. You wanted an east side precinct? Well, doggone it, we got one. We were tired of the precinct being located way over Wilmington Island. We got an east side precinct. We did some things in this city that have never been done before, like introducing $10 million for the next round of SPLOST money for affordable housing. What we want to do is get people, young, single parents, newlywed parents, newlywed people into these affordable houses, where they can afford the monthly notes from $700 to $750 a month. We want people in there. We want to get all these blanket properties, put them back on the tax rolls, and put people in them. Revitalizing neighborhoods. That's what we want to do. Revitalizing neighborhoods. Parks and playgrounds. Yes, we're gonna dig some more. We're gonna break ground tomorrow morning for a brand new park in the Holly Heights neighborhood, right off of DeLoach, where none has never been. We're doing some things in neighborhoods that have never happened. I'm happy. I'm running on my record. A record of achievement.
Yeah.
Organizations that I belong to, I am so proud to be a member of the 100 Black Minnows Back.
Yeah.
I am so proud to be a member of Prince Hall Lodge number 15, Free and Accepted Mason. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. And no, I don't boast of law enforcement career. I don't. Because that's not what we do. We have the chief back there who has a department, and we give him all the resources he needs. We give him all the resources he needs. And you know what? Ladies and gentlemen, our police department in the year 2020 will be making more money than any department in this region. Say something. That's what we do. That's what we do. I thank you for your time. But one other thing. The neighborhood of Parkside presents a unique situation. 49th Street. The south side of 49th Street is the only area that is in the 3rd district.
Actually, it's
51st Street
51st Street.
and 52nd Street.
Yes. Parkside.
South side, 50,
South side of it. Yes.
51st
Okay.
and
Okay.
52nd.
My bad.
That's okay.
Okay. So you always said you wanted it back in Parkside in the 4th district on the next realignment. Okay, that may happen, but I'm happy to have you in the 3rd district. And by the way, we do have some traffic calming on what some people call I-52.
Yeah.
Is I-52 no more?
No, now it's I-51.
We have traffic calming on 52nd Street, on the eastern side and the western side. I thank you for your time. I'm John Hall, and I appreciate your vote in November. Thank you so much.
Okay, so why don't we move over to the at-large post 1, and we'll start with the challenger. Kesha Gibson-Carter's back there.
Good evening, Parkside.
Good evening.
Good evening, Parkside. And hello, Savannah. I am Kesha Gibson-Carter, your community candidate for Alderman at Large, Post 1 for the city of Savannah. I am not a politician. I'm a public servant. I'm a civic servant. And I have been for over 20 years in this fine community. I worked for 10 years as the executive director of a shelter program called Interfaith Hospitality Network, where we work to acquire employment, childcare, and housing for families. This church was one of our founding churches. I just attended the funeral of the volunteer coordinator, Mr. Murray Bryan, who was near and dear to my heart. And so it's kind of nostalgic being in these corridors this evening. For 5 years, I worked as the executive director of our local rape crisis center, where I supported victims of rape and child molestation, the most egregious offense any person would ever face, only second to homicide, and live to have to tell about it to law enforcement and then to the medical community. I did that work with a great deal of vigor, a great deal of passion, and I stood and I held the powerful accountable in doing that work, and I have no regrets. I've also worked with seniors who are nutrition insecure, and I've worked with youth who are vulnerable and members of gangs in our community. I've been involved in community organization and mobilization. After 20 plus years in doing that work, I am now ready to be proactive in my approach to solving issues, solving problems, and meeting needs. In the past, it was much like an ambulance service or a fire service. You're trying to meet the needs of people who are in an emergency situation. In almost every one of those instances, there were challenges with government in meeting those needs. Not only do I know and am keenly aware of how those issues arise, I also know and am capable of positioning myself to solve those issues from a proactive perspective. And that's what brings me to city government. I now want to use my ability to advocate, to serve, and to lead in a proactive manner in which our citizens can trust that they have a leader who is transparent, who has a high level of integrity, who would not utilize the city's coffers, the city's opportunity for contracts, for my own personal good. But I would be a selfless servant in that I would not recuse myself from opportunities, but I would refuse myself from opportunities. Because you see, any resource that is available in this community, it does not belong to anyone on the council. It belongs to the people. As an advocate, I will be the person who will continue to stand up, and speak out for the most vulnerable among us. As your servant, I will be accessible to you, whereby you can hold me accountable. You can't be accessible only on Bay Street. Your representation starts here in your neighborhoods. That's how you hold us accountable. As I've gone about during this election season, I've heard from neighborhood presidents and I've heard from neighborhood leaders that politicians do not come around until election season. Well, as your leader, it is also my job to inspire you, to educate you, and to empower you. And so I said to them, don't you know that's your meeting? And you can create a blackout period. So if that politician hasn't been to your meeting for X number of times during their 4-year term, you create a blackout period. You can do that. And so educating our citizens. A lot of what goes on at City Hall and within city government, it's a little bit above the average pay grade for some people. And so you need someone who will be at the table to be able to articulate to our citizens, like recognizing that there are tons of resources we are leaving, some would say, on the table with regard to all of the development deals that's going on downtown. But I submit to you that that's money gone under the table. We could have easily, with all of the millions of dollars that we have allocated in bonds and the millions of dollars that's gone into development in this city, in the northern corridor of Savannah, if you had a representative at the table who was truly interested in the bottom line of the most vulnerable demographic in this community, we could have had in excess of $35 million back into the general fund of Savannah. And what could we have done with that money? We could have impacted affordable housing. The police reports that you hear of with regard to crime that's happening in your neighborhoods, it's not being committed by individuals who have a livable wage. It's not being created by people who have decent housing. When we are taking care of the most vulnerable demographic among us, we thereby are taking care of us all. As Alicia stated, it's not all about leveling the playing field. What we did here at St. Michael's Episcopal Church through Interfaith Hospitality Network, along with 25 other churches across this city, we helped individuals who had understood the needs of those who did not have. They did it with harmony, they did it with joy, and they did it in a Christian spirit. And it was wonderful. And as your leader, as your alderman at large, I desire to bridge the divide between our neighborhoods, to be at the table to represent each and every one of our Savannans. I'm not going to preach to you, I'm not going to pledge to you, and I'm not going to make you a promise. But what I will do is I will go to City Hall and I will do what I've been doing for Savannah for over 20 years. I'm going to perform for you. Parkside, send me to City Hall. Thank you so very much.
All right, then Alderwoman Bell, would you like to speak for a few minutes?
Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everybody? My name is Carol Bell, and I am your Alderman at Large, Post 1. I have been privileged to serve in this capacity for 8 years. This is my 8th year, 2 terms. I'm not going to go and tell you what I'm going to do. Let my record speak for itself. I'm going to tell you that I have served this community for 8 years on City Council, and I also have served this community for 38 years as a city employee. Anybody heard of 311? You're looking at who started it. I will tell you that as Alderman at Large, I recognize that you have a district alderman. You have 2 aldermen at large. Each citizen has 4 representatives. A district alderman, 2 at-large aldermen, and the mayor. I set the standard of the goal high for myself. I recognize at the beginning of this term, I recognize that there are always going to be needs in this community. I could work with the district aldermen in trying to achieve or meet some of the needs and challenges that they face in the 6 districts, but I also could make sure that I set a goal for myself to make sure that I was the face of City Council for challenges or initiatives that affected all 146,000 citizens in our community. In other words, the entire city. And I just didn't want to do one, but one each year, so that's 4. Consequently, I began in 2016 by co-sponsoring with the mayor Summer 500. We knew that we had, and still do, have some real challenges in this community with our young people. How do you keep kids out of trouble? Well, I don't have a magic wand, but I can tell you that if you give them constructive things to do, the likelihood of them in being engaged in that kind of negative behavior goes down. Consequently, we started Summer 500. Summer 500 has received national recognition because it is the largest public-private partnership that this city has ever seen. To date, between 900 and 1,000 young people have been introduced to the world of work. I thank the Chamber of Commerce and the business community because they stepped up to the plate and they let us know that we will partner with you and we will make sure that we actually institute in this community some behaviors or some actions that would change our youngsters. We partnered with the school district, and to date, those young people can have testimonies because they can tell you that they have gotten an opportunity to work on jobs that they may or may not continue for the rest of their lives. So it gave them an opportunity to experience the world of work before they have to go into it full time. We didn't just hire the kids, and dispatched them to over 112 businesses. We made sure that we taught them soft skills before we sent them into the world of work. What better way to train our young people? Year number 2, anybody remember Operation Empower Health? That was an initiative in this community whereby the medical community, St. Joe Candler, and the Department of Defense sent in medics from across the country to address health care needs in this community. You know that we have underinsured and uninsured people in our community. Here was an opportunity for our citizens to receive free health care services. Free, I said, at no cost to them. 7,972 individuals received free health care services to the tune of $4,500,000+ worth of services. Free glasses, free denture care, even veterinary services. That was my project for year number 2, because I knew that as sure as I'm standing here, I don't care how much advertising was done, I don't care how many PSAs were announced, I don't care how many times flyers were passed out on day number 12, because it was an 11-day program. Somebody was going to say I didn't know anything about it. I made myself, got permission from the mayor and made myself a committee of 1 to go across this community, churches, clubs and organizations, individuals, make sure you need to make sure you either go report to Savannah State, Armstrong, the Civic Center, or Garden City Community Center over those 11 days to receive health care services. Year number 3. Anybody heard of the front porch? Yeah. Thank you. The front porch was my project for year number 3. The police department, up until 2018, had nowhere to take our young people, juveniles, if they were acting out, doing, were committing, what did you call it? Status offenses. If they were performing in school, misbehaving in school, and were suspended. If they were doing any of these no felonies, no victim crimes, but if they were performing anything that was inappropriate behavior, classified as inappropriate behavior, heretofore the police department had no other choice but to take them to Chatham Park Regional Juvenile Court. Once they are introduced in the system, I was talking to a psychologist this morning who said once a child is introduced to the system, for the most part, often it's downhill from that point on. We needed a site where our agencies, the police department, the juvenile court system, the DA's office, city, county, everybody could come together, social service agencies under one roof and have a service provisions for our young people. Thus the front porch was birthed. 38th and Abercorn, you can stop in sometimes just to see it. Ask for Cheryl Jones, just to see what's happening in the front porch. Today, 125, as of last week, 125 students and their families have been served, which theoretically you can say that that's 125 students who have not been introduced to the criminal justice system. As I walked in, tonight, I asked the chief if he have a date for me. And he knew exactly what I was talking about, because there are 4 years in a term.
Alderwoman Bell, I'm going to actually ask you if you could round off, because we had a 5-minute, we're at 7.5.
I wish you would
yeah.
tell me
No, I
first.
did actually announce at the beginning, but you hadn't quite.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So the 4th project is the pre-arrest diversion program. We call it an adult front porch. That's for people over, a diversion program for citizens over 17. So I say to you, working together works. Mr. Hall said it, and that is so true. We can't do it alone. But I would like an opportunity to continue reaching across organizational lines, across racial lines, and trying to continue to make sure that this community is the kind of community that all of us can enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's, we've got 3 more speakers so I'm gonna ask if we could really try to keep it to 5 minutes. And
sorry.
we'll start with, no, that's okay, it's okay, we're just running out of time. We'll start with mayoral candidate, Mr. Lewis Wilson. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you very much. I would, first of all, say I'm very gratified to be here. And since I'm not a very good speaker, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. And I want to start by saying, you know, this administration started out with a surplus. They had a reserve. And now I understand our new city manager says that we're spending more money than we're taking in. And with all the new development and everything that we've been hearing about, new hotels, new subdivisions, and all these other things that are coming in to the building, I'm kind of hard pressed to come up with why we have a negative cash flow. So, tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from the west side of Savannah, around Bellwood area. So we weren't rich. My daddy was one of the first African American police officers in the state of Georgia, the original 9. I was second African American deputy sheriff in Chatham County. Worked for Judge Victor Muller. I had the largest division in Chatham County. I cleaned out my whole division. I didn't, they call it, when you OPS a paper that you're supposed to serve, that you have to get an order to perfect service. I didn't have any orders to perfect service. Everything that I needed to serve in my division, the largest division in Chatham County, got served. I left the sheriff's department and, well, before I got to the sheriff's department, I went in the military. I joined the military. Air Force at the height of the Vietnam conflict in 1971. Went around the world, came back, served in the Vietnam theater. And I went to the University of District of Columbia, where I had a concentration in accounting, economics, and marketing. Came back to Savannah, started at Savannah State, and I was the only one in my class to ace the final with balancing the entire balance sheet for Savannah Electric and Power Company using algebraic formulas, using memorized algebraic formulas. I was the only one in my class to do that. So I'm pretty good, I got a pretty good acumen for accounting and numbers. The situation that we're in with this fiscal policy that we have, and we purchased the fairgrounds, sold the water department. This sounds like something, if you don't know, it sounds like something you're making up, right? So, I don't have very much confidence in our council, mayor. Police department is actually doing better. Got a few little problems, but actually doing better. But you're gonna have crime, and the best thing you can do is deal with crime. One of the problems we have in Savannah, though, is a vast socioeconomic problem. If there weren't a lot of people that were just so desperate, you wouldn't have so much money. There's this whole situation on the front row in Bellwood. They promised a grocery store. Matter of fact, that had to be in the master plan in order for the whole thing to get. So you increase the density 600%. I'm also a real estate broker. Last 40 years. Okay. You increase the density by 600%, and then you say, hey, you remember that grocery store we promised you when we had that big display set up there in Moses Jackson Center? Well, we're going to take that out. We're not going to give you a grocery store. You know, I bet that more than half the people that live in that place where they increased the density by 600%, I'd be willing to bet that most of them have diabetes, heart problem, that kind of thing, because they're consuming all this processed food from Dollar General. Nothing wrong with Dollar General, but you gotta have nutritious foods. They don't have meats, they don't have meat. So these are things that we need to correct. We need to look at where all this money is going. This didn't come from Lewis Wilson. This came from Pat Monahan, okay, who I feel like is a very capable guy. When I was with the Sheriff's Department, Pat Monahan was a county manager. So we spoke and got to know each other pretty good. But, you know, if everybody's satisfied, I think that our ad valorem taxes are too high. I think that we can come up with a better way to deliver water and sewer services. I think that senior citizens ought to get a break on that. I'd like the opportunity to use my accounting experience, my real estate consulting experience, get us through the things that we're gonna have to go through pretty soon. I was on the arena committee, and I got so frustrated, and there's some people in this room that were in there when I got kind of frustrated. I said, look, you don't have enough parking. They pretty much told me to shut up. You know, and then threatened to call security on me. Remember that? Anybody remember that? For telling them they didn't have enough parking. Okay? So, my name is Lewis Wilson, and I would like to have your support. I believe we can turn this thing around, and I'd like to be a part of it. Thank you very much.
All right, and let's hear now from Alderman Van Johnson, who's running for mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, and I promise 3.5 minutes. I know. All right. Well, I count it an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Van Johnson, and I want to be your mayor. I've been on the Savannah City Council for 16 years. I've represented District 1, which for many of you is the west side of town, so to speak. It is some cases the most affluent, and in some cases the most impoverished areas in our entire city. For 12 of those years, I represented the downtown area of Savannah as well. For 25 years, I've been a human resources professional. As a matter of fact, I'm internationally certified in human resources, so I'm pretty good at that. And for 24 years, I've been a certified law enforcement officer and a law enforcement instructor. So I'm pretty proud of that as well. I'm not from Savannah, but I have chosen to live in Savannah. And I think that's pretty important too. I want to be your mayor because I believe that you have a choice. This is America. You have the opportunity to determine what works well for you. You look through my career, you also see that over 25 years of my life, I've developed young people in this community through the Chatham Youth Commission and through the Savannah Youth Council to create opportunities for young people to be successful, to create opportunities so they don't have to commit crime, to create opportunities that if I've learned, if you give young people hope, you change your whole trajectory of your life. And so I've spent my life doing that. I'm engaged in this because I just feel that I have an opportunity to give you what it is you deserve. And that is really more resident focused, more neighborhood focused leadership. I didn't represent you, but I fought for you. I'll call you mine for to the fire fee. But the fire fee didn't just go away because the fact was, you all were against the fire fee when it first came up. Yet it was voted on and pushed through anyway. That's right. Well, I mean, if you look and check the record, every meeting, and I've been criticized for not getting along. But guess what? If it's for the, and we're elected individually. And so we all have our own convictions. And so I fought for my convictions. And although we were the Davids facing the Goliaths, because of course the majority of the votes went for that fire fee, we fought it until it was repealed. That's how it happened. Yep. I'll call your mind to something even closer. Let's remember Munster Street. And you all coming down to city council, begging and pleading, saying, please look at this. I didn't represent you, but I sure represented you, because I voted along with you. Oh, we can look at the monstrosity that thing that is over there, the storage thing. I don't even know what that was because it's not what it was when they drew the nice picture for us. Said, oh, look, won't this be wonderful? Won't this be nice? And then it is something totally different. Remember who voted for you. Remember who listened to you. I'm just convinced that we have done an extremely good job in Savannah of doing a couple of things. We have industry coming here, and that's great. We have our ports that are vibrant. That's good. That's really nothing for us, but the fact is we benefit from it. We do a wonderful job of taking care of 15 million visitors who come here year after year. They come here. We do a great job of anticipating their needs. We do a great job of meeting their expectations and exceeding their expectations why they come back. So if we can do it for 15 million, we should be able to do it for 146 that live here every single day.
That's right. That's right.
If we're going to keep our living room looking good, then let's keep our bedrooms looking good.
That's right.
So I want to be a man that's going to listen to you, and certainly I just ask that you give me a fair shot. You evaluate our record. Evaluate what was said to you 4 years ago. Evaluate the fact that, we're 50 officers down and we have a 32% uptick in violent crime. Let's look at those things and evaluate that. I'm going to make no promises other than we're going to have night meetings if I'm the mayor, because the fact of the matter is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, most of y'all can't come to a city council meeting. So by the time you find out about it on the news at 6, the decision's already been made.
That's right.
Because I remember when you came down from Munster Street and had to take off for your job and all the time that was involved, and then we would continue to say, oh, you had to come back again. I mean, that's not how government is supposed to work. Government is other people, and you are the people. I'm a politician. I mean, yeah, I'm a person that engages in politics. That's not a bad word. It's the person in the role. So I'm just asking you to consider me. I'm not mad at anybody. I just think I could do a much better job. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
And our last guest this evening is the current sitting mayor, Eddie DeLoach.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. It is a great day in the city of Savannah. I usually say that every time I get up because it is a great day in the city of Savannah. And some of the comments that were made were interesting. I read the paper the other day and I noticed that the Chatham County Police Department had a reduction in crime overall. Also, I noticed that from the murder rate when we came in was 48. This past 2018, it was 28. That's a 40% drop in the murder rate. It's also a 20% drop in actual crime in the city from when we took office to today. So do I think the police department's doing a good job? I think they're doing a great job. Do I think Chatham County's doing a good job? Sure, they're doing a good job. So it's not a question of whether I think it's a good job, it's whether the citizens think it's a good job. And it's obviously, they would rather have the reduction in crime that we have right now than have a combined police force and have the crime they had in 2015 when it was the worst it had ever been in our city. So, no, it was not better back then. No, it was not a good way to do it with a combined force because the numbers speak for themselves. It's lower than it is at any other time. In 2018, it was lower than it had ever been recorded in the last 40 years. So I think our police department's doing a great job. And I think we do we're doing a lot of things in the community. We're getting a lot of things done. We take care of our community. We take care of our kids. The most important thing we have is our children. The most important thing we have is our children. And what do we do with that? We ask for you to consider putting in a pre-education program that we put up over on Wheaton Street. Now, Wheaton Street doesn't mean anything to you. But the most important thing you need to think about over on Wheaton Street is those kids need the same opportunity that we have. So that when they come out of the 3rd grade, they can read at the same level that you do in the 3rd grade. If they can do that, we have less crime. And that's what we're about. We can't put a policeman in every house. We can't put a policeman on every corner. But if we reduce the pressure on the police department by doing a better job taking care of our kids at an early age, then we have a better chance of getting those kids to graduate and move on to jobs. Those jobs are a Summer 500 job. You heard him talk about the Summer 500 program. That was nowhere in the city at that time. I also we were talking about how great it is over in the first district, okay? Let's talk about the first district. We went in there and said, okay, let's do this. Let's do some affordable housing here, because they had folks over on Cummings Street. If you'll ride Cummings Street, you can look at it and you'll see how deplorable it is. Just go over there and look. You've got some wonderful ladies that's been living there 30, 40 years. And around them, they've got houses falling down all around them, boarded up, been boarded up 20, 30 years. But somebody had to go in there and do something about that. Now, there's been somebody there for 16 years, but nothing's ever been done for 16 years, and then all of a sudden this year it needs to happen. I'm Eddie DeLoach. I get things done. That's what I do. I get things done. I cannot do anything without 5 votes. Our system is called the weak mayor system. I cannot control anything. I can work with 4 other people and get things done. And we have got a world of things done in our community that I can point at and tell you we got the best. The poverty rate has dropped 20% in our community, and it's not by me, it's by the numbers from somebody else. Don't mind showing them to you, but it's a fact. So yes, it is better. We are better. Savannah's better. Our economic pressure, what we're doing right now economically is amazing. And it doesn't matter if it's up on that first street, as long as I got jobs here for these people. Everybody needs an opportunity to work. We're trying to put people to work in jobs. Sure, it might not be in your area, but that's okay if you can get that job. That's why we had job fairs. Didn't have job fairs before OED came around and said, let's have a job fair. So we had job fairs because of push for job fairs. We had 2,000 people come in and take an opportunity to get a job. They signed up, people were hired that day. So things are a lot better in the city of Savannah. Things are going well in the city of Savannah. There's a lot more we need to do, absolutely. But we've built a great foundation. We've got a good foundation. I want to build on that foundation. And I appreciate y'all's consideration going forward. Thank y'all for y'all's time.
Thank you, everybody. That took a little longer than expected, so we don't have a ton of time. So we're going to, we probably won't have much time for more than a question. So 3 years ago, the Parkside Neighborhood Association and Parkside Neighborhood voted unanimously to support an archaeological ordinance in the city of Savannah. And we actually have in attendance right now Laura Seifert, who brought that to our neighborhood. And because we decided to vote on that unanimously as an organization, I think if we only have time for one question, then I think it seems fair that we would do something that we as a neighborhood all agreed was important to us. So I'm gonna pass this over to Laura here to say a few words on that, because I know it's been a topic of discussion, and maybe we can get some responses on what people think about that.
Yeah, I guess I just, if we have sort of one question is,
Can you come to?
oh yeah, if we could just ask the candidates, anybody who wants to chime in, do you think this is something we should be doing? Right now it is really wide open. They're accepting all kinds of feedback on if we should have an archaeological alliance. What should that look like? There's lots of different options. So anybody who wants to chime in, are you in favor of an archaeological alliance? If not, why not? If you are, what would some of the important points be? Should it be public and private development? What is, I saw your hand and then your hand, sir. Go ahead.
I think that would be a great idea as long as it is diverse, because Savannah has a whole lot of history here. And it's not just one section of history. We want the whole section of history to be revealed here in Savannah.
Not just the National Historic District, but the whole city.
The whole, because I ain't gonna talk.
Okay, well, let's switch over. I saw
Yes.
another hand over here as well. Go ahead,
I
sir.
was just trying to determine what the initiative was.
This would be, it is so in advance of development. For example, our storage unit that's been being put in behind the Whole Foods, they didn't do any archaeology. So it's possible they may have destroyed a site that was 13,000 years old. Who knows?
Exactly.
We don't know. They didn't do any archaeology first. And that happens over and over and over again. Every time we develop a new piece of property, you destroy an archaeology site. When you get the bulldozers and you dig down, you destroy the history that's associated with it. And just a little plug for archaeology. Can you tell I'm an archaeologist? The important thing about archaeology as opposed to just history is document based. So it is primarily people who were literate, who could write. You know, when you get into archaeology, you're talking about people who could not write because it was illegal to teach them to write, because they were illiterate, because they were Native Americans and they didn't have a writing system. So it's, you know, archaeology kind of fills in the gaps in history that's not present in just the documents. So that's kind of the importance of doing the archaeology. Other thoughts, opinions,
I
please.
think that's one of the core responsibilities of your alderman at large. You know, as we previously acknowledged, the city is broken into 6 districts. We have 2 alderman at large posts, and then you have the mayor. Well, the beauty of the alderman at large post is that you have the opportunity not to just focus on one area of Savannah, but you are uniquely poised to bridge the divide between all of the neighborhoods. And in the short time that I have visited the various neighborhoods throughout our community, some of our more vulnerable neighborhoods, this piece is certainly relevant there as well. And so as your alderman at large for post 1, I would certainly be inclined to support those efforts, not only in this area, but in all of the areas, hopefully creating a process by which we could create a shell, if you will, where that could be utilized for neighborhood to neighborhood, and this could essentially be the marker of how we do that for other neighborhoods with you having this type of talent here. And as I said, what's important downtown, if air quality is important downtown, it also should be important on the south side, because we're all breathing air, right? And if this piece is important here in Parkside, it's certainly important in the west side, because they have vast history that they want to hold on to as well, and that land is very valuable to those residents.
This should have been done years and years and years ago. So I don't think any candidate needs to try to get any hay out of this, but we do have an archaeology ordinance that will be coming before council very, very soon.
Yeah.
May I just really quickly ask though, because I was reading a little bit about this in a piece that's been going around. I think the concern though is, right, that it's like, well, will it just be public development or will it include private development? What kind of scope is it? Because it's easy to say, yes, we want this, but I think what we voted for as a Parkside neighborhood was a comprehensive archaeological ordinance.
Yeah, it's sort of that devil's in the details.
Well, it is. I was gonna make the distinction. I do wanna thank you because I remember when you came before city council, and it was just amazing the amount of time that John Q. Public and Jane Q. Public put into this. And I think you came and we on program and we got you there and then told you to come back. But this is important. This is important, and I think we just found not too long ago over in District 6, Alderman Thomas District, they were doing something in the street, they found bones that might have been from a soldier that might have been. So I mean, I think the fact is Savannah is on top of itself, and so I think I think it creates an opportunity. Our best history has not been discovered yet.
I saw another hand.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm not a candidate, but as a political scientist, I'm listening to you, okay? And I want to get into the policy side, but also understand from a human side. Does this mean that before they start digging, that they will do an analysis, and if something is found, then it was removed before the bulldozing will take place?
Yes.
So, like, I'm trying to
Right.
extract what the nuts and bolts is down to.
Yeah.
What we need to know.
Yeah, it's so it would be part of the permitting process. So anytime you have like I'm going to build this housing division, so it goes through a whole permitting process that goes through MPC, et cetera, et cetera. So the archaeology will be incorporated into that, so that when the people out on White Bluff who are going to put in the auto shop, to use a real example, those graves were only discovered because a citizen came forward and said, hey, there used to be graves here.
That's right.
That's the only reason that those graves weren't bulldozed. Because, you know, a person on a bulldozer is doing their job. It's not their job to be looking for graves.
Right.
And so, and I've heard horror stories from people who do operate bulldozers. And so if there had been an archaeological survey first as part of the permitting process, they could have taken care of it ahead of time, and then they wouldn't have had to have a stop work order, because it's obviously illegal to dig through graves.
That's right.
For obvious reasons. So it would be a whole permitting process ahead of time before you even did the construction.
Yeah, I want to let the candidates have a chance to speak, because that's what we're
Sorry.
here for. So, yes, Ms. Wilder Bryan.
How y'all doing? First of all, I want y'all to remember the word policy. As my opponent said, it's already established that there's a policy. And so that's been the problem for eons here. We've got things in place, and we just don't have people voting on the policies that we need to vote. So that said, we already know that Savannah is an historic city, you know, and so there's a lot of history, you know, from slaves, from people who did it first, people trying to make sure that we have monuments and markers in place all over the city. And so it defeats the purpose to talk about policies that already are in place. What we need to do is elect people who would do the kind of things that you seek. I like Linda Wilder-Bryan.
Yes, Ms. Bell. And then I'd also like to hear from Mayor DeLoach, because they're opponents. I mean, go ahead, yeah.
This has been nothing earth-shattering. I merely want to thank Parkside for the work that you put into actually bringing this book to council. As John indicated, we are in the process of staging hearings, in fact, listening to the public, and I think this is another opportunity where we ought to continue, use what you have provided as a foundation or as a base, but actually solicit input from the public. And needless to say, any kind of policy, ordinance, or whatever that is enacted will be for the entire community, not just for any one area of the city. As has been stated before, you know, this is a historic city, and there is history all over the city. We have made mistakes in the past, but now is an opportunity for us to build on this. And thanks again to Parkside for bringing this forward. But that's what engaged citizens do.
And Mayor DeLoach, do you have a comment on this, and then we'll close this off?
My point on it would be that we've got a position that was drawn up by the community, that everybody understands. We need to bring in the developers on the other side, and you go to our group and sit down and all hash that out and work through it, and then develop it, and then put it in policy. But the reality is, it's not a bad thing to do. It just needs to be a time and things, all that, but it can be done. It's not a hard thing. It's like the alcohol, it's like the food truck policy. You can't overcomplicate it, or you'll never get it done. But if you go in at a one level and work your way up, you can increase the complication. You can increase the detail later if you can get your ground floor policy in place.
I'm with you.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. It's 8 o'clock. We wanted to cut the meeting off. Okay, well, I saw Tony and then Mr. Wilson, and then we gotta stop. We gotta end with time perspective.
I read what I wrote in the paper today or yesterday, it's on my Facebook. As a perennial student, one of the reasons I like to be involved in government to study. I'd love to see what you guys study and talk on and learn more about it. We can vote unanimously. It sounds like a great policy. I know that Israel, you can't even move a piece of dirt without an archaeological dig.
Yeah. And Mr. Wilson, and we'll close.
I liken that to a situation that we have right now. They just broke grounds on the arena. And I've been in the real estate industry for about 40 years now. When you do a development of that size, they do a phase 1 and a phase 2, phase 1 environmental impact study. When you do that phase 1 environmental impact study, if it throws up a red flag, then you do a phase 2 environmental impact study. So I think that that's what I'm proposing, because if you get in a situation where you dig down and you find a jar, and you're trying to discover where this jar came from, and you hold up development on that project,
because it needs to be clearly defined what needs to happen in order for, you know, this lady to be happy and the people that's gonna do the development.
Just you. All right, well, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Thank you, everybody. And on behalf of Parkside, I just want to say thank you to all of the candidates.
Great job.
Even though I'm a Savannah resident, I still do some volunteer work in New York. So I have to be away a couple of times, but yeah, because